Hello, and welcome to Dream Cinema. For the past 5 years, the Step Jayne album Silver Bullet Suicide has been released one track at a time with an accompanying video. For the next 10 months in Dream Cinema, I will be exploring each track and video with a co-host. This month, I am in conversation with Dr. Tim Shinnock, who is cinematographer for The Sheep Are Safely Gathered In, and Megan Hutch, who is an actor in the project. We invite you to watch the music video prior to our conversation. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Welcome to Dream Cinema, Megan Hutch and Tim Shinnock. It's a pleasure to have you both. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Megan Hutch's voice is a torch. She wields it with reckless abandon, cutting deep into the decades of American music. She welds it all back together again with the authority of an undertaker and the mad glee of a black bloc saboteur. Jesus, man, who wrote? That's amazing. That's from Jay Duckworth at DIY Surgery Studios. That's Megan Hutch there. And she is a singer-songwriter from Joshua Tree. She also owns her own business, the Pointed Pearl Skincare. That is located in Joshua Tree. If you want to go make yourself look beautiful and feel good, check out meganhutch.com and thepointedpearl.com. Thank you for joining me here on Dream Cinema, Megan Hutch.
Thanks, JD. Pleasure.
And Mr. Tim Shinnock down there in the bottom, singer-songwriter for the Adobe Collective, which has been credited as bringing the high desert sound to this region of the high desert. Tim has produced 3 albums with the Adobe Collective. He is a board member at First World, which is an art and performance art space in Joshua Tree. He is also the head of pediatrics at JFK Memorial in Palm Springs. So, Tim, welcome to Dream Cinema.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It looks like you're woodshedding out there.
This is my father-in-law's woodshed, so.
Literally woodshedding. So we're here to talk about The Sheep Are Safely Gathered In, which is a song I wrote many years ago, and then we produced the video. The 3 of us together produced this video about 2 years ago, and it was released around that time. And I want to start off with just this is kind of out of the blue, but it's been on my mind a lot. So I figure you talk from the heart, and that's what kind of resonates and gets people grooving. But why do we, and this is in the context kind of what we've been going through as artists and maybe human beings with COVID and all of the things that have been happening in our lives. Why do we even create art?
I don't think there's an answer for that. I mean, I think that's personally, I'm sorry to jump in, but like I feel like art is part of the great mystery personally, and everybody's got their own feeling. I question that in myself all the time. Why do I feel like I need to do this? I don't know the answer.
You haven't come up with any possible reasons as to why this, because you've created a lot of amazing music in your life. You've been on other people's albums. You even paint from time to time, right? And draw. So
I am an artist. Art is in me. My work with my skincare is art as well. And I don't know why, but I feel like it's in all of us, and all we have to do is explore what's inside of us and see how it allow itself to express itself as a part of us. I think that we're all have the capabilities of expressing our inner artist, and it's, you know, a part of being alive, in my opinion.
Maybe art is, sometimes I feel like the term art is even limiting to make
Yeah.
people who are not artists feel that they can't participate in this creative process that is life to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Art is an expression of my what's going on inside of me, my inner spirit, if you want to call it that, the mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of the equation that was taken out of being an artist, at least as a performing artist, was the performance element. And a lot of bands dissolved during this time. Some probably started coming back together. Even a lot of things, to me, during this COVID experience, really had me questioning why I'm doing this. What's the real motivation behind why I create all of these things that are sometimes seen by 10 people, and sometimes they're seen by 1,000 people, and so you just kind of reassess. Tim, did you do any reassessment during this past year or so?
Oh, for sure. Well, because also, in addition to like creative pursuits and how this changed the whole equation in terms of, even the fact of like having a band and how that didn't really like that fundamentally changed, during this time. But also then being at home with a family and two little kids at home, it's been a huge way to just put everything, I guess, into context. And I think it has been a way to just like, yeah, I think the why question has definitely come up for me, like, if I'm making something and the only reason is that so like other people can see it and like say something or pat me on the back, it's like maybe that's, I don't know, that's maybe not the, for me at least, like the best way to go about it right now.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I mean, back to the like why thing. I guess there's just some I, I don't know, maybe like a yearning, a yearning to make something and put it out there.
Mm, mm. Well, it's sometimes it feels like something comes through you, like Megan was saying, something comes through you and you express it. You want to get it out. You want to maybe explore it. But then at the same time, for me, it's kind of like a gift you want to give people. You want to give people something too. You don't, for me, I don't, like some artists will create and it'll just stay in a studio somewhere. But I want to see it go out as a gift to people and see how it resonates, or, to share. There's to me that feels like it wants to be part of the process, almost like the culmination. Do you guys feel that way at all?
I guess I'm hesitant to be like to presume that anything that I make might be a gift to somebody. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
in a way, but then also to hold on to it yourself. I mean, that may be. I think it's different for everybody, man. I think that's the thing is like it's really individual, and I
Mm-hmm.
think there are uh, billions of different reasons to do it and different ways to uh to let it exist. So I
Yeah,
don't know. That's hard.
maybe gift is the wrong word, but look, you've released 3 albums, right? And you've released music videos and things like that. So something in you also must want to not just create it and keep it in a closet, but to put it out there. Maybe it's not a gift. Maybe that's not the word you would choose, but it's something, right? It's something that you're sharing.
For sure. Yeah, and maybe for me, it's like I had an experience that led to the the need to create something, and for me, sharing it out there for sure. Like I wanted people to come along the journey with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Megan, you've released at least 1 album, as far as I know, right? And maybe and
Two EPs, yeah.
2 EPs, and
Yeah.
you performed, I don't know, hundreds of times, and you're
Yeah.
just a captivating performer. It's something in you that comes out that like is like when you perform, it's of many performers I've seen, it feels like you're just channeling some serious energy, and when it comes out, it's just like sometimes it's explosive.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about the gift thing, it's like I see it as energy and expression. And for me, performing, or rather, like expressing my performer side of myself, that's something that I don't walk around every day in public like as that. It's actually quite the opposite. So it gives that part of myself that needs to express energy an opportunity to do just that. And with any art form, with painting, or with, when I work with body work, you can give out energy and have it go in one direction. You don't know who you're really affecting necessarily. It's not the point for me isn't to receive anything. And yes, of course, like it feels great to receive. We should feel good receiving, and I love receiving good energy, but it's like it's a channel for different parts of myself to express themselves. And thank God, because like I'm can be fairly reserved, like on a day-to-day. I don't really like it when people look at me. I don't know how to talk to people sometimes. I do a really good job pretending because I'm a performer, but when you're able to express a piece of a mystery, it's like the kind of, for me, I feel like my ego can be dropped a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of enter almost another character, which is what we did which is what you and I did in the Sheep Are Safely Gathered In. We kind of entered these characters, and but before we move on to Sheep, Tim, I want to follow up with you for a second, because Megan talked about how she relates her skincare work with almost as an art, and I'm curious about how, as a physician, art interplays with that, if it does at all. Does it interplay? Do the two of those interface?
That's a question that I've been asking myself for quite some time now. Like, am I an artist first, or am I a physician first? And like, I think that's a really hard question to answer, because for me, art is a lot of intuition, and is a lot of going with what makes sense in the moment. And for me, medicine, less and less over time is that, because I feel like we have more and more information about what is the right thing to do in a lot of certain situations. And for me as an artist, there are some times when I say, okay, the right thing to do would be this, but you know what? That's the exact reason why I'm going to go this direction, And I don't feel the freedom to do that in medicine. There are certain pieces of it though, where like, I started to see every circumcision I did as a sculpture, for instance.
Wow.
So, I mean, in that way, like maybe I could call myself an artist, like with the circumcision, and like I'm sending a sculpture out into the world.
Here goes another little fella out in.
They asked me to do it, so it's a service I provide. So there you go.
That's those are two very, I suppose, different worlds. Maybe the creativity in medicine would come more in I don't know, the laboratory, or in trying to find new ways to think about prescription drugs, or creating something that would solve childhood cancer, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's maybe more of where the creative cutting edge stuff would come.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one aspect. I also find that I get a lot of creative freedom in terms of the communication that I have with people, because definitely there's a way to approach someone that's true as I can be to them, like to what I the best information that I have to sort of kind of meet them where they're at and then move forward together. So there's a lot of collaboration. And for me, there is an art to that.
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
art? I don't know, but there is an art to it. Yeah, so that may be, I don't know what the difference is exactly there, but yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sure, Megan, you probably experienced that too when you're dealing with clients and then trying to read the clients, almost like the way a performer reads an audience in a sense, to sort of adjust the performance or the communication in a way that makes sense for the situation, for the given situation.
Well, and again, that all happens first energetically. You get a feeling first.
Mm-hmm.
That either that something's not right or that something is right, or and then bringing in communication into that after that energetic opening presents itself.
So it sounds like you just sort of let things, you're perceiving things, you're letting them land in your body almost, it sounds like, and then you're kind of knowing how to move from there. Is that one way to look at it?
Yeah, and I wonder too if that has something to do with being a female as well versus a male, because in general, I think that's kind of how I try to go about my day-to-day, and professionally and personally, is to see how things feel first, and then assess how I feel, and have that conversation first within myself about how to respond. And it's all like gauging everything. But I like that comparison about reading the audience, because this all happens split second. It's not like it's not a conscious actually it can be conscious thought process, but I think the more conscious we can make the thought process, the clearer the communication can be, if that makes sense. Like if I can understand how I feel first and know that it's just a feeling first, to respond accordingly. Because we can get heebie-jeebie feelings, but where is that coming from? Is that coming from inside of me, or is that coming from an outside energy? So it's fun to play with. It's really fun.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of the sheep are safely gathered in, kind of, for me, in a way, is dealing with, is kind of the subconscious realms within us, the subconscious possibly desires, things that are forbidden, things that are almost hard to decipher, hard to understand, but they're kind of riding around your gut for years, wanting to have a voice, almost like a bunch of little kids you're pregnant with in your belly that want to be born and get circumcised. But I had one quote here that I thought was interesting that I just came across. It says, it's talking about Andrei Tarkovsky, the Russian filmmaker, and Roger Ebert was saying that he is absorbing you rather than entertaining you. And I thought maybe that would be a lead-in for The Sheep Are Safely Gathered In, because when I create, sometimes I don't even like to be called an entertainer or an artist, because I feel like it holds... Every role we have holds a definition that kind of limits us in a certain way. And then people enter your works thinking that they're either supposed to be entertained or something like that. And it's my preference that you kind of get absorbed, in one sense, in the world, whatever the world is that is being created. And I don't know, maybe that involves entertainment too, but absorption just feels better to me. So why don't we get into the sheep? Tim, you want to kick us off with some curiosities you might have?
Sure. So okay. As I'm thinking about, okay, for me, there's in the sheep, there's like the darkness and the lightness, And I guess my question is a little bit about this. There's a transition that happens in the piece
Okay.
where the guy goes from the snowy guy, but then there's this other character, which is the the bald guy with the white suit. I guess I'm kind of like, are those the same person? Because there seems to be a transition. Did we start here and go there, or are they both occurring simultaneously? I think that's a little bit maybe where my curiosity is at, is like,
Mm-hmm.
is there a transition in us that goes from light to dark and back again, or is it something that occurs simultaneously that we live constantly with? And what's that like for you all?
Yeah. Megan, do you want to talk about it first, what your perceptions are, and then I'll go?
Well, I mean, I hear both of you. You mentioned, is this like the inner world? And for me, I was asking, is this all going in the psyche, or is it in the physical? And then Tim, what you were saying, all of that, as well, just the whole yin yang, darkness and light is obviously playing huge roles. And just, I have so many questions. I feel like curiosity of if what I am taking from the video is what you were actually trying to convey and present. And I love that video. I think it's really amazing. It's really intriguing. And for those that do like to question this kind of stuff, because then there's another side too, it made me wonder, why is it, because I've shown it to several people who are like totally turned off, don't like it at all.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder why some people really have a difficult time absorbing things that make them feel uncomfortable.
That's a great question, because I've had people in my life that are very close to me, say, tell me that they think it's demonic.
Yeah.
And so, some people maybe haven't even watched the whole thing. They'll get a few minutes in and it'll get so scary for certain people that they'll turn it off. Other people have watched it 100 times, for whatever reason, they're turned on by it. And that is a curious thing. I mean, what does demonic mean anyway? And what is that trigger that's getting pushed that's so strong that you have to turn something off? And then the other question that I honestly ask myself is, does this stuff how much of let's call it the shadow, because that's what Jung called it. And I think there's sort of a general reference as to what that sort of means. But for those that haven't studied the shadow self and Jung, it's kind of like the side of your nature that lies hidden, that maybe wants to be expressed. And if it's not expressed, sometimes comes out in unhealthy ways, in either behavior or passive aggressive actions or things like that eventually find their way to the surface, maybe in unhealthy ways if you don't deal with them. But I don't know whether or not sometimes this kind of thing needs to be put in the world more, or does it perpetuate more shadow self, or does it actually allow you to heal yourself and move beyond it? Do you guys ever wonder about that? Like when you're writing songs and they're super, because you guys write some dark stuff, and
I know I do. Yeah.
And Tim, your stuff there, it's kind of maybe sometimes cased in this softness, but when I listen to the lyrics, take heart, take care, there's nothing there. I mean, God, there's nothing there. What, that's kind of like almost super painful in a way, if you like think about it for a minute. So So, do we need to put this into the world? Do we I mean, should we? Should we even think about it?
Absolutely. Of course. It's an expression, and it's not for us even, I feel like, to try and make sense of, like, if we're doing something that's good, or when it comes to art anyway. And as long as you're not harming anyone else, you know, and I don't think we're ever going to get rid. I mean, you can't. Why would you get rid of darkness and, like, Jung, the shadow? You can't. But I don't know. For me, it's really like, I have to be really careful assuming that I know what I'm doing. So I don't like to assume that I know what I'm doing half the time. Like, I know my intention, and if I'm answering your question about that, if I need to express my art 100%, if I'm not hurting anyone else, if it's taken one way or another way, like, I don't know, it's that's not really my concern. I mean, like, Satan, devil stuff, if people want to view it that way, that's their choice to make. I mean, it's all about, I feel like, for me anyway, it's all about the intention that I have when I'm doing anything, whether it's like talking with somebody, talking to myself, you know, creating anything, which that's all creation. I don't know if I answered that or if I was just babbling, but I love this conversation.
So Tim, you wrote "Take Heart, Take Care." There's nothing there. You wrote that lyric, and that lyric, it's in my mind. It'll probably be in my mind forever. That talk to me about that. Like, what does that? Where does that come from? And do you ever feel like I do, that sometimes I wonder, am I adding more darkness into the world? You know, or am I adding some sort of comfort for others who feel that way?
Yeah. Okay. Well, in regards to, like, am I adding more darkness into the world? I think my upbringing in conservative Christianity has led me to fear that I'm being used for evil, which is, I feel like, a little bit different than just like putting darkness out there. Like, it's, you know, so for me, that's like what comes up for me, because in the process of making, you know, the sheep are safely gathered, like, I was behind the camera most of, you know, of the time, and actually the process of making it, there was so much beauty happening, right? And then, so to see it put all together, and then to you know, see some people's reactions, like you said, like the demonic aspect and all that, and just like, man, I wish you had been there to, like, experience, like, what it was like to be there during the making of this, you know. And so that, you know, that had me questioning, well, what is putting darkness or shadow out there, really, you know? In regards to Take Heart, Take Care, there's nothing there. I mean, that actually came out of when who was the band, the desert band who was in Paris, the Bataclan shooting? Was that Eagles of Death Metal, or was it
Eagles of Death Metal?
Yeah. So when Eagles of Death Metal were part of that shooting in Paris, that was like my first awakening to how divided people were in terms of, you know, questions about, you know, all that stuff, right? Like, just how much division there was. And so for me, my eyes were opened to the possibility that people can see it completely different sides of the spectrum. And to me, that like the message that came out of that was like, well, if people can see the same thing so differently, like 180 degrees from each other, is it possible that there's actually nothing there and it's all made up, you know?
Oh, interesting.
So that's like, that was the genesis of that, you know, that specific line for me, is if two people who are probably reasonable can see it so differently, the only conclusion I can come to is that there's nothing there. I don't know if I still believe that, but yeah, that's where it came from.
That's interesting. I never perceived that line that way, which is fascinating about art. You know, when you think about certain people perceiving demons and certain people perceiving angels, you know, I mean, to me, sometimes people that tell me they see demons in my art, I look at all the shit they buy for their kids and I think, what's the demonic thing going on here? You know, in terms of like, you know, because I see a lot of demons myself in consumerism and the kind of incessant shit that we fill our lives with all the time, thinking that we're gonna fill some sort of a void, but we do it in these plastic environments that are very angelic looking. They're presented to us in like with words and language that is taken by the advertisers and seduces the hell out of us. So it doesn't look like a demon. You know, it looks like a soft little toilet tissue that you get to wipe your ass with. So let's buy 7,000 rolls of this and feel safe, or let's buy our kids a bunch of more shit so that, you know, we can, I don't know. It's just, you know, the demons come in many forms, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we all sort of point our fingers at other people's demons instead of kind of dealing with our own a lot of the time, I think.
And that's the art of seduction. You know, the commercialism is, in my opinion, the art of seduction. I think it's a dark art. It can be when it's used like that, for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's just one aspect of it. But
Yeah.
so you know, the other thing that that I want to talk about with all this that's going to be a little dicey because it's sexuality. To me, spirituality and sexuality are always either at war or making love in my mind.
I was curious what you're going to say, actually, because I wasn't sure how you felt about the host and that scene with him on the table, if that was what you were implying as well. So it's interesting to hear. But yeah, that scene when I'm like just completely, looks like, I mean, if I can think back and remember too, like how it felt embodying that character, just it was like, you know, I was talking about different parts, like the opportunity to have a part of me express itself like that, of just super like back to the dark light, the feminine and the masculine. From my understanding of that like dichotomy, I guess, the masculine is life, light, and energy, and the feminine is darkness and release of light and chaos, literally like just chaos. And obviously there are two extremes, right? We can't just have men or women on the earth and, you know, all of that. But like, it was a really cool opportunity for me to like literally explore like, what is this darkness inside of me and how does it want to come out? Because you didn't tell me what to do in that. And Tim, you know, I think you gave some direction for angles, but you know, it was amazing to me to see myself take on this character. And like, I remember feeling like when I was cutting your hair, like to me, hair represents, and I don't know if this was your intention or not, but to me, hair represents things that like we hold on to. And releasing all of that, like getting rid of it, was like stripping you of your perceived identity, or not yours, but the guest, I think that was the guest, perceived like identity. And when I was like sticking my hands in your mouth, it almost felt like I was trying to look for more of you to get out. and it was erotic in a way, but it is interesting, like, it's just so interesting. I think that maybe the eroticism might come from that extreme feminine, even though it's super dark, it's still, those were feminine qualities of death and chaos and like darkness. So yeah, and it is scary. I mean, when we're that close with another person, exposing ourselves like that, it's terrifyingly vulnerable. You're in a vulnerable state. So I mean, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Tim?
Yeah. I mean, just being witness to that, and again, being the one, behind the camera, putting the frame to it. What I was just noticing was the interplay between the shapes, and it was really just like, it was really tactile for me. It was really, in a way, the just bodies, right? It was like, and even parts of each individual became different bodies to me. And the fingers and the mouth, those are two different bodies. But even then, like, there's a head up there too that's technically connected to the hands that are making that motion, but for me they were different bodies. And so, that's just my experience as I was watching it, through a camera. And it's interesting, JD, that you bring up the character, on the table, because for me there was also, like, I think at the very end of it, there's another view of that, what I perceive as that same character, whereas earlier on it was this, sexual writhing or whatever. But then for me, actually, it turns out we're almost looking through a peephole at someone being sacrificed. And that maybe is like a complete leap on my part, but for me, it was almost like, oh, actually, yeah, I thought that guy was writhing like in some sort of pleasure or whatever earlier on. But then now that I see it from a different perspective and a little bit fuzzed out, it's almost like I was peeping in on like a sacrifice. Don't know if that was intentional, but that was something that happened for me.
Well, that part happened later, and I actually filmed that myself. I think the next night, as I recall, and that's the part that feels the spookiest to me for some reason when I watch it, because of the music, and it just feels like there are things going on there that maybe relate to what Megan was saying about chaos, to where it's going to a place that you don't completely understand. Maybe you never will be able to comprehend all of the things that are going on in your body, that and your mind, that want to get out. But for me, I don't know what else to do besides create something like this. I mean, I've gone to therapy, and I currently have a coach that I work with, that I work shit out with every month, but there are certain things that it feels like when you create a piece out of them, you get to live it. And that's what was so cool about this piece, is it was actually a linear project. So as the character, I got to experience it all linear, which is rare in a film. I'll call it a film because it's kind of like a short film as well as a music video. But Tim, I'll never forget this. Like, Megan and I did our scenes, and then Megan you left because there was no reason for you to stay, and that was already like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Okay, and it's like emotionally fucking intense, right? Yeah. And then I go to Tim. I look over at Tim and I said, Tim, if you want to go, man, we can do this tomorrow night. And Tim, you were like, no, let's do it. Let's just rock this. Let's get this done. And I thank you so much for that, because that weird state that I was in at 3 a.m., that like foggy, it almost felt like you're on some sort of hallucinogenic, even though I was sober. But it felt like I was on a hallucinogenic. And then that character just came out, and it was linear, because you go from the stranger, the guest, into being this host. And it was amazing to experience that embodiment of it. Megan, when you were playing your character, were there things that you remember experiencing, like things you talked about it, I guess, with the fingers and the hands a little bit, because we sort of prepped that character together and talked about it quite a bit, and then you embodied it. And whenever I see her like doing those things and those tattoos you have here, show us your tattoos. Look at that. I mean, whoa, how fucking perfect.
Well, that's part of it too, is like getting in touch with that another feminine quality of like the mystical, you know, that we don't I mean, for me as like a professional woman, you know, I don't get to I have to literally intentionally get in touch with my more mystical side on a daily basis. Otherwise it can kind of let go. But like that was a really fun part of just developing, you know, we talked about what we thought the character might be, I think, right beforehand, and really like just asking whatever in the ether to come out and show me is so much fun for me.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
like, it's such a trip. And what you're saying, that linear thing, just going from one part of yourself, like finding another one, defining another one, like in that amount of time, it's an opportunity like that is really it's so special to me to be able to make these things. You know, dark or not, like it's so special. It's so beautiful.
Jim, are you about to say something? No. Okay. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the story, because the sheep are safely gathered in. Jesus told a parable in Luke 15 in the Christian Bible about the lost sheep. It's basically there are 100 sheep, and if one of them gets lost, the good shepherd goes to find that lost sheep and rescue it and bring it back. And for me, that story is kind of always riding around my mind, including the story about the prodigal son, which comes a few verses later in that, which is where the son takes the inheritance, goes and spends it all, screws up his life, and then wants to come back home, and his father accepts him. Also, the parable of the lost coin. The woman loses the coin. She searches everywhere. She finds it. So there's this thing of like, though, that I sort of invert in this, is like, who's the shepherd? Who's the sheep? Who's the wolf? So
This whole sheep come safely gathered in video and this whole conversation about what you're talking about reminds me of, and I took a screenshot of it, of Rumi's poem, The Guest House. Are you familiar with The Guest House?
Yes, but do you want to say a few lines?
I would love to. It's really short, and it's
go
like
for it.
right
Go for
online of what we're talking about. So he says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning there's a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Yeah.
I love that poem.
Oh, I love welcome them all laughing is something that I love that line, you know.
Yeah.
and we are talking about the guest and the host here, aren't we, with this video? And maybe, you know, what I've come to in my lifetime, I don't know about you guys, is that it seems to be this like thing in life where you pass through one guest house and you kind of get some realization, but then there's another guest house after that, you know, and then there's another guest house. You think you've elevated your consciousness. You think you've reached some sort of spiritual insight. And then you realize this tunnel runs very, very deep. You know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah, like every day, basically. Regarding the host, though, don't you think there's some temptation happening? Is there not any temptation? Like, you interpret him saying like there's 20 miles to the next line of the road, like let's deal with this now, but isn't there a piece of the host that's just like, you know, like, come on, you know, you don't want to go all the way that way. You might get hurt, but come on. Is it not a temptation?
Well, that's a great point, because there is seduction going on there, isn't there?
It seems like it to me.
Yeah. I mean, I do think there is seduction there, but here's the interesting thing about it to me. Consciousness is seductive.
It could be these characters represent whatever the thing is that your consciousness is telling you to focus on. It's just the dark side of it and the light side of it. You know, this could be a window into just exploring whatever issue it is that's present for you at the moment.
If you let yourself, with like a lot of people who won't even watch the rest of the film, it's just like the same thing. If you're open to exploring it, I love that.
And sometimes art maybe just plants a seed, you know, of like, here's something that almost like gets planted in your subconscious, if you will, and later on you kind of deal with it. You know what I mean?
Well, and maybe that circles back around to your first question, which was, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's to plant a seed for our future selves. I mean, you know, like, it's a signpost. It's just a signpost that we put in the road. I read that somewhere. I forget who said that, but like every piece of art is just a signpost that points the person coming behind you to like, here's what I experienced at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we think we get to some place spiritually and then we get knocked over again. Like, it's just, I feel like this like ever evolving like spiral staircase with a big rock on the same spot every level up. You know, and we know it's coming, but we just trip over it every time and keep going up.
Yeah. I do think that that's just kind of like something to make peace with, is that there's a continuum, you know. Maybe that's maturity at some point in your life. You realize that you're just kind of always opening up to answers and things that are leading you down the path, and maybe there's no destination in particular. It's just what you're going through at the time, and to be okay with that. Well, yeah, thanks again, you guys, for exploring this with me and for being a part of it. Let's do it again. And I'm looking forward to hearing some more art from both of you. TheAdobeCollective.com, MeganHutch.com. You can also find Megan at ThePointedPearl.com. And,
that's right.
And we'll talk to you guys again soon.